All right, just a reminder, this is a little late because the deployment didn't go well. I'm going to cover that in the next episode. I'm just trying to get my notes and everything together so you can see where it went bad and how I've recovered from that. And it's quite a change, but it's good, I think. But basically, remember, we're trying to build UsWork. This is an app that will be built by AI, and it will allow us to have a place to post jobs and reply to jobs with automation, with agents, and it won't charge us a ton for everything we do. And it will also allow us to automate this stuff so we can do what I said, and hopefully as a collective of people find more work. And again, it's $5.56 when you sign up, but as we get more people and reach a goal, it will go down, so it's like under $1, and then you get all these automations that we're talking about. So on that note, we'll cover making an API to find jobs and then to post job proposals. And that reminds me, I have an API to find the jobs. I never did searching, so we'll have to come back to that. But you'll see how quickly I can iterate in N8N, and then you'll see where I got stuck and why with the API and UUIDs in pagination. But otherwise, like I say in the video, I'm not going to show the deployment yet. I took a side turn and it's going well. I just want to get some things together before I make that the direction and then the next video. If it goes well, and I've said this before, we are in a place where it's already deploying now to production, and it will be ready then to actually start using, maybe by the next week. It really was a tough weekend trying to get this deployed, and I learned a lot about Lovable and how it builds things so that I can consider what I'm ready for and how I want to deploy something and potentially build something. But I'll cover that in the next video. And then just remember, I do have a forum. It's my effort to make not a Discord, but a discourse where we can have a conversation. I can come there every day, answer questions, people ask questions, and then we have a history and just ongoing knowledge. I put stuff in a lot of places. I want to put it there and give people a place to go to get the help they need every day to learn how to do these things. So that is there. It's $5 a month for now. And it's only going to grow as people start using it and ask me questions, and I'll go visit daily and give them answers that come from all this daily experience I have. And hopefully you'll take advantage of that. All right, thank you. It's Tuesday, and this will be my first video because, man, the deployment did not go well. So I was all ready to deploy the UsWork app. I dug into the weeds, learned a lot about Supabase, and I just couldn't get it together with the way Lovable wrote some things, how it used functions, and just a mix of things. So I'm going to talk about that in the next video. This video, though, I still need to build the API to have people look for jobs that have been posted and then post job proposals. And then I'll introduce the work I did to bring the app up to date so I could deploy it. And I'll show how it is now deploying with Supabase and with just all the normal deploy stuff that I was doing. So what we're going to end up with is this. I'm going to walk over piece by piece. The reason you see it already cooked is because I really got stuck on something here, and we're going to dig into it and see it. Man, there's two stucks. This was not AI's fault. This was my fault. And we'll then show how it works. You'll learn how to do something here that's pretty cool, and then we'll do the other part, which is fine. This is good stuff to know too. Now, when we use the API, we're going to be able to get jobs, and so here's the get jobs, and then we're going to be able to post a job reply or proposal. And let's see, proposal. And that will get the API done. Now, the API has a few factors to it. It needs to be authenticated, so we have the person when they make their tokens. And then we also had to check that the person's, here's their token. We also had to check that the person's user ID was an active user ID. Again, really easy to do, and that's why I'm moving this work out of Supabase functions and into N8N. So let's look at each piece of this because it was not easy for me, and I'm okay with it now, but I don't know. I think it could have gone better. Now, the thing I want to show is that we are using Supabase local, which is just awesome that we can do this so well. And we will, in the next video when we show the deployment, we'll show how I did all this, and then we'll show how we deploy it to production. me see here. So in this case, when I write Supabase status inside of my folder, we see all this great information because I can now plug it into anything for the Supabase that's running in Docker. And I will point out a few things in a moment about how I hooked that up because it's tricky, but you'll see in a moment. So to begin with, when the person does a get job, it's we're going to do a get request to the particular URL, the localhost and the ID of my N8N, the port number. And we're going to do the request, and it's going to come in here. And then we basically pin it so we can continue with the rest of the work. And it's always tricky. This is great that we can do this. Then we have to deactivate one if we want to run the other. It can be a little tricky. So we got to remember to reactivate it so we don't mess up something. So anyways, the next column or the next node will then be where I get into the detail. For example, I took that information you saw a moment ago and I plugged it into here to make a Postgres. Now, we're using Supabase, which wraps around Postgres. Now, these are all local hosts, but remember we have Supabase and Docker and N8N in Docker. And you could do other ways of making them talk, but I do it this way so that they can talk over my machine. So this Docker then talks to the other Docker, which is Supabase. So remember that if you put localhost here, it just won't work. And then we put in the post, the username, password, and the port that you see down there. So it's all pretty straightforward. Now, once you have that hooked up, you can then do the query, which again, ChatGPT or Claude is writing these for me. I'm using OpenWebUI and the latest ChatGPT to do some things I couldn't do. Claude was actually having a downtime moment. So I was able to just do this really quick with OpenWeb and ask some questions, which was neat. I know I could use Gemini 2.5, but I was using this just to ask some questions. Now, some of the work I do with the deployment and everything really brought the MCPs into place. I'm not using that here because I really could have, but for a demo for this video, I had to move into a new folder with new code and stuff just to show this. But the MCP workflow is helping quite a bit as well. So now when we make the query, we're basically saying, let's see if this person has a token that matches in a profile that is active. So if we get results, great. And if we don't, we know that something's wrong with their request. And we just basically do this by saying if authenticated. And all I do is put a if not empty, because if it's empty, we're getting nothing back from the database, which is always set to be always output data. So now we have a results, which if we're empty would still be a empty JSON, which then would go to here and be just a 404, for example. So here we go. Now, on this one, we just take the particular arguments and we centralize them so I can use them again more easily or alter them as needed. The cursor ID, the number of results with a max of 100, I think, and then the cursor created at ID, and that will make sense in a moment. And we just are doing a query of the database, but with ChatGPT's help, and I used a UUID for this column, and I kind of regret it. And I think I could have just used a numeric ID and then used a UID for ID. I think if this doesn't handle well, I'm just going to go back to that. I did this and I'm like, I see now why this is a little harder. But basically, it was tricky for me with even AI help to really make a good paginated solution where the person could do pagination. Now, I have another video I did where I go over all of this CRUD and pagination. And it's really easy, honestly, to do a cursor base. And cursor just means that we're basically saying, I'm going to give you a request. So basically at this point, I had to use a lot of AI and say, okay, listen, we have a timestamp, we have an ID, a UUID. How do I make this happen here? And I wish I took a moment and sat back and just redid it. I might, and just make this an integer and then have a UUID for external calling. So at that point, the user using the API, can make a request and do that. But let's see what that looks like in one moment. So then we aggregate the results. We say, okay, give me all those results, move them into a data field in all fields. Now, Postgres or any of these kind of return 11 items, but then let's see if we can show here. I don't know. I think I could have done this, but it seems to cause it has built-in looping. So to avoid that, I aggregate it. And then in here, I just formulate the response a bit more. I could have just put it to the webhook ending, but I like this. And so I take the data, I put it the way I like it. I take the pagination count, the per page, and so forth. And then I just bring it back out. And this actually, oops, I didn't finish this, but basically this was supposed to be dynamic as well. I'll have to go finish that. I got to go grab that code, but basically I take a bit of the results and I put it here as true or false. I think it's just a count, honestly. And then at that point, we get the response. So if a person was to give me a request, the API request, it gives them all their answers, and then it will say, let's squish down the data one moment, or collapse the data. It will say, hey, you have 93 out of 100. And so you'll see it's not, I still got to work on it. I messed around with the dates a moment ago because all the dates are the same because it was one import, so it's a flaw in my demo. But it should go through the pagination. So the user should be able to go for the next day, get the results from that day, and not have repeat cursors or IDs. I think that needs some work. So then from there, we just return it. Yeah, so that's about it for that one. So the other one was a lot easier. We can then, on this create proposal, the person will say, listen, here's the job proposal I have, job ID, user ID, API key, and content. And they're going to reply. In this web API, this API will say, okay, let's again see if you're authenticated. So this is a nice one. I could make this and this a external workflow and reuse it as much as I need to. I could use this again and again and use it in different places. But I'm not going to worry about that just yet. And then if they're not authenticated, we just kick them out to the 404. Now, the next thing we do is just say, hey, did they give me the values I need, which is the content and the job ID? If they didn't, it's just a validation error. I just send them back with a something. And I don't think 422 is right. I think I have to do a validation error. So maybe 400 or 403, not 422. We'll say 403, but I'll come back to that. I say that a lot. So now, if it is valid, if valid true, we then just double check. So I see if the record exists because I don't want them having duplicates. And then if it does exist, if not duplicate true, we go on. If there is a duplicate, we just reply to them saying that was a duplicate. And that solved the other problem I had where I didn't want people submitting twice to a job for whatever reason, spam or accident. Then lastly, we save the particular job proposal and we return back to them. So saving it is obviously pretty easy. Job ID, user ID, and content. These will trigger things in N8N, in Supabase, because we're going to have those webhooks that if there's a new job proposal, the job owner gets notified. If there's new job postings, everybody who has webhooks set up will get notified. So those are going to be part of that. And that's it. So now we get a response. So that's basically it to make that API. Not that bad. It was only bad because I did that cursor. I did the UUID. And now I remember, now I know. I've been spoiled by certain tools I had with Laravel to do pagination. And I'm glad to be doing it this way and learning with AI how I can do stuff with Postgres and queries. So that is about it. The API now to do this is done. Soon we'll move into to what I did to make the deployments work. But it's a lot of different work, so there's going to be a little surprise episode there. But I want to just get it a little bit more ready so when I do show you the solution, that it will make sense. Okay, hopefully that helped with the APIs. I will see you in a couple of days with the deployment. I just want to get it right, and it's been a lot of work to get it wrong. I'm making good progress now, and we'll come back to that. All right, thank you.